And a very good day. Welcome to another Catchin KARP Outdoors, our web series and podcast honoring Minnesota's great outdoors. I'm Joel Niemeyer, your host again today. And today we're going to continue, and it will be part two of our three-part series as we welcome back local fishing expert Matt Larson. Last show, so if you missed that one, go find that on our either our KDUZ Media Active YouTube page. Just search for that, or you can go back on our website here, KDUZ.com, KARPradio.com, KGLB1310.com, and part one. We talk, Matt and I talk about prepping for fishing, so you can listen to that one first. And then today, we're going to discuss kind of fishing this local Hutchinson area within a 30, 40-mile radius of Hutchinson. What are some of the lakes that we should be fishing? And we're also going to talk about some walleye tactics as well here as we talk some early season stuff there. So part two of our chat with Matt Larson coming your way right now on Catchin KARP. Well, let's talk about getting on the water now, and as far as just in general, we'll maybe go into this in more detail with different species of fish here, but just in general, you know, you hear about the Alexandria area, the Brainerd area, Bemidji area. You hear all these different hot spots of fishing. You don't hear much about the Hutchinson area. So how good are local lakes in this 25, 30-mile radius of Hutchinson?
They're fairly good. If you have a pretty good knowledge of breaking down the water, they're really good lakes. I would say that some of our lakes in this immediate area are just as good, if not better, than some of the lakes that a lot of people like to go to. Some of these lakes include Washington, Stella, Minnabell, Manuela, Bell, Silver Lake, Swan Lake, Cokato Lake, Minnetonka, Waconia, Winstead Lake. Those are some lakes that are just off the top of my head, some go-to lakes for me when it comes down to pan fishing, walleye fishing on opener, pike fishing. They're going to give you some really good opportunities to get out, and you can catch a lot of fish if you have the right knowledge base going into it. So picking one of those lakes, for example, Washington. So it's a shallower basin lake, but it's got some feeder streams in it. It's got a lot of different diversity as far as sand, gravel, weed transitions. So that's a lake where I'm looking at it, and it's a bigger body of water around here too. You know, you're looking at Lake Washington on a map, and you're thinking, wow, that's a pretty good sized lake. But as I'm breaking it down, I'm looking at water flows. I'm looking at transition areas. And a big transition area that I'm going to be fishing on Saturday here is going to be a transition between gravel and weeds and sand, because the sand is going to warm up probably the quickest. If the sun's been hitting it, which it has been, water temps have been rising, so that alone is going to draw a lot of bait. Now, adjacent to that, if you have some weeds, that's where your bait fish are going to be holding, and those are going to be ambush points for walleyes or northerns alike. So to me, looking at that, that's what I'm breaking down right away when I'm on the water. And you know, any one of those lakes that I named, you can do that with as well. So Washington is just my example, but that's kind of my mindset on it.
Let's get a little species specific here, and we got to start off with the one that everybody's, I should say most everybody's going to be going for in opening weekend and the first few weekends for that matter, and that's walleye. Give us some good baits, lures, lakes. Where should folks be looking for walleye in the area?
Well, I just named one of them, Washington. That's a good place to start, but Stella, Cokato, some of those deeper lakes that'll offer some sharper edges and some really good drop-offs. There'll be a lot of fish that are going to be posted up in those areas. But as far as attacking that, as far as how I'm going to go about it, I'm going to start with an 1/8 ounce jig. And I'm not going to be using live bait this opener because I'm trying to stay out of the bait shops. I'm trying to practice a little bit of social distancing myself. So in taking part in that, I'm actually going to have an entire artificial lineup going into opener. So my go-to right away, first thing in the morning, is going to be an 1/8 ounce jig. I get a little specific with my jigs, but an 1/8 ounce for anybody would be a good place to start. I use VMC sleek jigs. They're designed to handle the plastic fairly well, and then the shape of the hook actually works better for the type of presentation that I use. So I'm going to be pitching. I'm actually going to be sitting on the deeper edge of the first drop off on the lake that I'm going to, and I'm going to be using my electronics to kind of pan and scan around the shallows. And as I start to sit on that first edge and break, I'm going to be pitching my 1/8 ounce jig. And it's the fall of that 1/8 ounce jig that is going to trigger the strikes that I'm looking for. I'm not going to be super, super aggressive on opener. So my artificial plastic that I am going to be putting on my jig is going to be a real light paddle tail by Kitech. But any type of a paddle tail that is a little bit sleeker and thinner in profile is going to work a lot better. And why that is because I'm not looking for erratic action. I'm just looking for a slight action. So that paddle tail is going to be something that I go to on opener on that 1/8 ounce jig. Now, if I have to go into search mode, then I'm going to be using what I like to call a 2-inch jigging wrap. There's different sizes of jigging wraps, but I usually try to go for about a 2-inch profile. Colors wise on that, I'm going to be looking more for like a natural perch look, or something that's maybe more like silver or gold. I'm going to try to keep it really natural and neutral. That'll be kind of more of my triggering method if I have to go to a triggering method. As far as like a Rapala goes, you could use a number, I would say a number 5 shad wrap. You can cast that, you control that along the first drop-off edge on your favorite lake. And that, again, I'm going to be using gold, silver, natural perch color. Those are the 3 types of methods that I'm going to use going into the weekend. Now, will I have a couple things set up so that I could maybe pull a spinner to locate fish? Yeah, I mean, I'll have a bunch of different stuff set up in the boat. But as far as my 3 go-tos, and those would work on any of the lakes that I mentioned before. So if you're going to Minnetonka or if you're going to Waconia, those are a little bit deeper, more diverse lakes. But there again, that's where I may be starting and working my way back out towards Hutch. But if you are fishing like a Washington or a Stella or a Bell, those methods will work on those lakes as well.
And we'll pause our conversation there as we will continue our chat with Matt Larson in part 3 of our upcoming conversation with Matt here. And we'll post that next week. Again, these first few weeks, we're going to post 1 show every week. And then once we get to June, we're going to settle into our twice a month. This will be a twice a month podcast here on our websites and our YouTube page. So check that out. And next week on the next show, Matt and I are going to talk about northern pike fishing, panfish, and much more. Don't forget, introduce a kid to the great outdoors, and always keep that line in the water. We'll talk to you next time right here on Catchin KARP Outdoors. I'm Joel Niemeyer.